We're back.
It's been a while.
Lives have tried to penetrate the relationship between Jake and I with our busyness, with things happening. However, we could not be stopped.
Nope.
And we are back to break down the latest Vikings and Minnesota sports news because there's a lot to cover. We haven't recorded for a few months just because it's your off season, and now we'll get ramped up again because that's what we do. But Jake, Vikings lost to the Rams.
My thoughts?
Your overall thoughts on the Vikings blowout loss?
Yeah, so it's a bummer. I mean, when you look at it, Darnold only lost to two teams this year, right? They lost to the Lions twice and the Rams twice. So you kind of hope, you hope you can sign Darnold back. And because, he's proven that he's obviously a solid quarterback.
Right.
In the right system with the right people around him. You kind of hope that you can kind of bottle up that magic and keep it going.
If you had to guess where Darnold would land this offseason, there's a lot of QB needy teams out there.
There are, yeah.
If you had to guess where Darnold would land, where do you think he would land?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on what KOC really thinks of him, right? Does he think JJ can take over, or is he kind of more of a Darnold truther now? Has he been convinced after one season?
What's your prediction?
I mean, Steelers are going to be looking for a quarterback. Panthers potentially, Titans potentially. The Seahawks, we have to wait and see what they do with Geno Smith.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of options that Darnold's going to have.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, this is what's going to probably happen.
Okay, let's hear it. You are known to be Nostradamus.
Yeah, the Vikings are going to do their classic, right? Because I don't think they want to pay a quarterback a lot of money. Because I think they look at it as a window, as a lot of teams do, right? Where you have a rookie quarterback contract.
Yep.
And you need to build a roster around that rookie quarterback. If he becomes somebody that's special, then you're going to have a special window. If he is not special, then, and that's just the way it goes, right? That's just kind of the risk you take in football, right? 49ers is a good example. They have Brock Purdy on that rookie contract. They were able to build up all these pieces around him. Now, who knows if they're going to keep, Deebo Samuel and Hargrave and all these different guys that they've had on their team the last few years. Who knows? Looks like the 49ers might have to fall apart. So, to pay Purdy. So I think we're going to do we'd love to keep Darnold for a certain number, but, we're not going to go past that number, when in reality that number is going to be a lot lower than anybody. There's going to be a team that's going to destroy our number. So we never are really going to actually be in the Darnold sweepstakes.
Yeah.
It's going to be more so somebody like this, Seahawks are going to come in and offer him $10 million more a year than we would ever offer him.
Well, where does Geno Smith land then?
Well, we tried to get him, but...
Well, if the Seahawks get Darnold, where do you think Geno Smith lands then?
I don't know. It doesn't matter. He's washed. Maybe. I honestly don't remember where they traded. The Raiders? Is that where he went?
Yeah, I went to, went to the Raiders.
What a great bit.
As far as other guys are concerned, do you think Aaron Jones resigns at the Vikings?
I mean,
oh man, it's funny.
No one else is going to sign him.
All right. As far as other topics are concerned, let's transition out of that bit into an actual football discussion. And
I will say, though, the Darnold thing, I think, went as we kind of thought it would, which in terms of the Vikings are going to be in it.
Yep.
Hey, we think we can sign Darnold for a reasonable number, but somebody's probably going to be willing to pay more. And that's literally exactly what happened.
It was the Kirk Cousins situation reincarnated.
Correct, yeah.
Just the following season.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it was.
Yep, it was, yeah.
But as other football rumors and dialogue continues, one of the hottest topics to discuss, not only locally, but nationally as well, is the Aaron Rodgers steam to the Vikings. Because, one, Aaron Rodgers is not one to make a decision right away. But he sort of has to if he wants to play for the Giants and Steelers, because those two teams are probably not going to wait the entire offseason for a 42-year-old quarterback. So he wants to play for the Vikings, it appears. And why wouldn't you with that roster and with that head coach? The question that really everybody's trying to answer right now, even the best insiders in the league, are trying to figure out if Aaron Rodgers and the Vikings will come to an agreement on a deal that would land him in Minnesota, following in the footsteps of Brett Favre. It almost feels like it has to happen because it happened to Favre.
Yeah.
But will it happen? That's the question that everyone's trying to answer. And my one theory on the whole situation is that the Vikings could have squashed this entire idea a few days ago. They could have leaked information to one of the local beat writers of the Vikings and said, we're not interested in Aaron Rodgers. But not a single one has said that or reported that. So, why haven't they if none of it is true? So, your take.
Yeah. First of all, that's a next level take, right? If they were really turned off by it, they would have just put it out there to the world saying we are not, in the Aaron Rodgers business, and it'd be done. Because they haven't known. I mean, now, do they have to come out and say, JJ's our quarterback no matter what, and we're not signing? No, they don't have to do that right now. I mean, there's not really a rush per se. But yeah, the Aaron Rodgers thing is interesting. That no one at the Vikings to squash it. And the most, was it Diana Rossini or whatever her name yesterday was kind of saying it?
Yeah, more gut instinct. Yeah.
Yeah. But then you see somebody like PA was saying not no, but basically no, right? He's saying that JJ's going to be the guy. That's the vibes that I'm getting. Just a matter of time.
Right.
I don't know. To your point, the longer it's gone, my first reaction was probably like everybody's, just like, that's so dumb. There's no way. Because the only way you'd do it is if he's a backup, you'd assume. And, his Rodgers play last year doesn't warrant an automatic starting position, I don't think. Now, depending on your team, right? Steelers, Giants, whatever. But that Rodgers is expecting a starting position. We'll put it that way. And if you have J.J. McCarthy, the only chance I guess you'd say he's not starting is if he's still recovering, or it's just not, I can't see a scenario where they're not starting J.J. unless it's Aaron Rodgers. That's
unless it's Aaron Rodgers. So you're saying that it could happen. Your insiders, your sources are indicating to you that it could happen.
I don't want it to happen, but it seems like, again, the longer it lingers, I feel like it went from not possible, and now it's just slowly trickling up. I would still say it's not likely, but I've softened on its zero. It seems like they're letting it linger longer and longer. Again, to your point, I think you meant if you're Rodgers, if you're balancing Giants versus Steelers versus Vikings, Giants are an obvious worst case scenario. Steelers, you could argue, maybe better than the Vikings, but I would probably put the Vikings ahead. But you have Metcalf and Pickens. That's a pretty good offense. Defensively, they're always solid. So, whatever. Depends how he feels about Tomlin. I have no idea. Whatever. Tomlin versus KOC for Rodgers. But, if you're Rodgers, Vikings are probably the choice. Jefferson, Addison, Jones, Hawkinson.
And you can play the Packers twice. That's part of it.
The Packers twice. Yeah, so the waiting might be more on Rodgers' part, too, where he's waiting to try to get the Vikings more interested, you might say, or something like that, versus, I'm guessing if he wanted to sign a deal with the Steelers or the Giants, he probably could do so, right now, and it would be done.
Right, for 100%. What also makes this interesting, and this, again, this is 100% on the Vikings organization. Nick Mullins left.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones signs with the Colts. Brett
Darnold
Rippon
might leave.
Darnold might go to Seattle. Geno Smith might get traded to the Raiders for a 3rd-round pick.
No.
If the Vikings did not want Aaron Rodgers on the roster, or at least not considering it, the question that we're trying to answer right now, are the Vikings considering it? And it seems like it's yes. But what also adds fuel to the fire is if the reports are not true about the Vikings communicating with each other about the interest in Rodgers, then why have they let some of the best backup quarterbacks fall to the wayside and sign elsewhere? When McCarthy, fine, he's QB1, but wouldn't it be kind of nice to have a Gardner Minshew or some other solidified backup veteran that could step in case McCarthy goes down with another injury? So the longer they wait to sign a backup, it just adds more fuel to the fire for Aaron Rodgers to sign with the Vikings.
Right. I mean, yeah, because even a Mac Jones, again, starting experience.
Right.
Golf with some starting experience. I mean, not that they're great options, but just guys who have at least played.
Better than Brett Rippon.
Right. Guys who have played that have experience that don't expect to be a starter. I feel like that's the other key. I mean, Gardner, sometimes, I don't know. I guess he's kind of done, but he's expected to be the starter a few different times. But, the rest of them, and even Gardner too, right? They know that they're backups, right? They know they're signing contracts that are, hey, break glass in case of emergency. They can play. Cooper Rush, I think, might still be available. He might be the best option aside from if you're into Flacco or not. I think he's, again, depending on your opinion, he might be the best available veteran backup that's still out there. Or Cooper Rush. It's kind of what you're left with, I think.
Right.
Yeah, to your point, though, I mean, you can't go into 2025 with JJ and Brett Ripien. I mean, that's not going to be, I bet a lot of money that's not going to be the Vikings quarterback room come August. There's just no chance. You can't go into the season with those two guys. Heck, even Josh Dobbs signed, right? So, I mean, there's no other option. So, right, that just to the point of Rodgers, I mean, that's an option. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. It's been an interesting story. And Rodgers being kind of radio silent, unless I missed something. I don't think he's been out there saying anything to anybody. So that makes it more. He's usually running his big mouth too. So
he's probably the one leaking everything to the insiders. The reports have come out that Rodgers wants to play for the Vikings, or at least it seems like it. And his agent is the one leaking it to the insiders. And
probably
the question that I think is another struggle is during the Darnold chaos of this offseason, will he come back, will he not come back? All of the national insiders were saying that the Vikings and Darnold were basically in negotiations to make a deal happen and that the Vikings wanted him back. But some of that was being pushed from Darnold's agency to those national insiders.
Right.
And all the local insiders, including us, were saying the same thing. They only want him back at a specific number. This is the Kirk Cousins reincarnated situation from last year, where they're not going to pay him $100 million and forfeit all that cap space that they've worked so hard to get for the last 3 years. So now it's like, you think about where these reports are coming from, and Diana Rossini's gut instinct is that Aaron Rodgers signs with the Vikings. I was like, what does that even mean? That's not a report. That's an instinct. That's a guess. It's as good a guess as any one of us guessing on the Aaron Rodgers to Vikings situation.
Yeah, and it's just, again, historically, I refuse, unless he's changed. It does not seem likely. We'll put it that way, that he would come here and have any interest in mentoring or being a backup. There's just no, I can't imagine there's a world where that's what Aaron Rodgers is thinking. Okay. And let's say he does sign and he does say the right things about, I'm going to be a backup. I'll teach JJ and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Okay. And I'm going to go on Pat McAfee and sing his praises. Right. The second JJ has a bad game, what is happening? Whether it's the crowd or the insiders.
The second Rodgers has a bad game, or McCarthy?
No, I'm saying JJ starts the first, all of a sudden it's, game 4.
Oh, right.
JJ has a bad game and we're 2-2 or something. I mean, talk about just crushing JJ's development. I mean, all that will be heard would be Rodgers this, Rodgers that, Rodgers this, and Rodgers could be doing better. But like, you got to think bigger picture. Like I said, with a rookie quarterback. Now, again, if they go through the summer and say, I'm just not sure that he is good enough, right? That's a little different. Then you could say, well, it's worth the Rodgers gamble because we have a roster right now that's really, really good. Okay, if they decide JJ just is so far away from being a starting quarterback. I assume that's not how they feel based on the fact that they drafted him and how they've talked about him.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like they think he's ready to go and he's an NFL starting quarterback, okay? So then you have to write it through. I mean, again, the teams that are successful long-term in this league have rookie quarterbacks and great rosters. That's been the tale for the last 15, 20 years. That's how you do it, with some minor exceptions, right? If you have somebody like Mahomes, it's a little different, right? Or if you have somebody like Hurts, maybe kind of in that category, right? Although their team, again, is kind of loaded around him too. But the teams that have success have that situation. So, I mean, you got to ride that out unless you really think JJ is not him, right? Or if he needs another year of development, maybe you can make that argument. Say, all right, Rodgers for one, JJ next year. Maybe there's that argument too. I don't know. Again, that's a KOC problem that he has to decide, right?
For sure. I feel like, going off your point, if Rodgers was brought in, I feel like it'd be the exact opposite, where he would be the QB1 guy. And let's say through the first 4 weeks, they are 2-2. And then the Vikings would be more likely to bench Rodgers for McCarthy than I think they would be to bench McCarthy for Rodgers, if they did intend on bringing him in. But you bring up a great point of like the amount of chaos that would ensue if Rodgers is brought in. Because think about the amount of Vikings were 14-3 last year. But think about the amount of chaos that would have ensued following the Jacksonville Jaguars game, in which Darnold threw 3 picks in the red zone, if McCarthy was not injured in the preseason. Like, we're talking about full blow up. Let's start McCarthy, get Darnold out of there. The guy's collapsing. He's reverting back to Jets-Panthers Darnold.
Yep.
There is a lot of advantages to not having noisy backup quarterbacks on that roster for the full-time quarterback. Well, and I think you make a good point on that.
Yeah, and to be fair, and now Rodgers would probably be noisy, but if we had Rodgers in this example, right, he wouldn't even have to say a word either. He could be playing it straight and actually doing his job and helping McCarthy and all these things.
Totally.
But the noise would still be loud, right? The crowd, the fans, the media, the coverage, everything would be about, is it Rodgers? Should Rodgers be playing?
Uh-oh. Holly joined. Holly's in the car. Uh-oh. Disconnect that Bluetooth. Disconnect the Bluetooth. Here we go. Yup, I can't hear you yet. Uh-oh. Hello, Holly. Holly. Hello.
Hello. Okay, you're back.
Oh, you're back. You're back.
Yeah, I don't know if Holly connected to something.
The Bluetooth strikes again.
Yeah, Bluetooth.
Holly was sharing her take about it. I asked Holly what her take on Aaron Rodgers was, and she weighed in on it.
Did she?
Yeah. She said, I like Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback option for the Vikings.
I'm sure that is what she said. She might have said, because her grandparents are Packers fans. I think they're kind of over Rodgers. So if we had Rodgers, they would be maybe a little bitter. I don't know.
Sure.
But he was dreamy. He was dreamy at some point.
One more Aaron Rodgers take before we transition to another discussion.
Okay.
With the media coverage and with us playing the victim card all the time of like, everyone always overlooks us and like no one wants to talk about Minnesota sports, having Aaron Rodgers would flip that on its head, just like having Favre flip that on its head in 2009. Yeah. There were helicopters following Favre's car to Eden Prairie Winter Park. Yeah. He was the coverage on ESPN, front page, middle page, back page, every single page, which made it entertaining for fans. And Chase Daniel, former quarterback in the NFL, he's now an analyst for somebody. I think Amazon or something. Anyway.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
He says, I feel like there's a good portion of Vikings fans that secretly want to see what happens if Rodgers signs. And I'm 100% on that. I secretly would be so intrigued to see what would happen if Rodgers signs, because it just makes the team so much more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, from an entertainment value perspective, yeah, there would be day in, day out, week in, week out, just chaos ensuing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, would we have like a Vikings sponsor ayahuasca night or something? I mean, I don't even know what. It'd be some crazy changes probably. And again, he wouldn't even have to be that controversial, but the controversy would just follow him.
It follows him.
His past.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially because he's on ESPN's Pat McAfee's show every week.
Right.
So every single week he's going to be asked questions about the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. The Vikings offseason, we'll touch on this topic real quick, touch on another one, and we'll bounce. They added offensive lineman Will Fries. Offensive lineman Ryan Kelly.
Yep.
Defensive tackles, Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Allen, re-signed Aaron Jones. Harrison Smith is coming back for another season, probably to finish out his career in Minnesota, which I think is cool.
Yep. Byron Murphy.
Byron Murphy's back. They signed an Eagles guy for the other cornerback position. Cam Bynum left. We brought back Theo Jackson.
Yep.
Basically, that's pretty much it. Darnold will still
very active. Yeah.
Yeah, Darnold will still see what happens on him. But your thoughts on the Vikings free agency? What stood out to you about their decisions and moves this offseason?
Yeah, well, so they did what they need to do, which is they retooled both lines, offensive and defensive. They bolstered them a little bit. I mean, defensively, I feel like they could have one of the best defenses in the league, I feel like, now, if things go well. Now, there is some risk, right? I think Hargrave only played like 3 games last year or something, and he's getting up there. I think he's a little older. Kelly's a little older. I mean,
there's a lot of injury concern over pretty much every single player that they signed.
Right. So, I mean, it could obviously be an absolute disaster, right? Things could flip on their head. But on paper, just analyzing it talent-wise, it looks like it was a home run kind of class, getting Byron Murphy back. Losing Cam Bynum is probably not the end of the world, especially for what they paid him. It's just kind of one of those things. The other thing is the cap. I mean, we were set up to have all this cap room, right? And then I didn't even remember what's the number. The NFL jumped the cap was like 30 million or 40 million. I don't even remember what the number was. A crazy number for next year. It's like it doesn't even matter what the cap is because it seems like it just keeps going up
every year. Right.
So you might as well just keep deferring all the money, so then you'll just always have cap space. Doesn't matter. So that was kind of a bummer that we were in such a good position, and then everybody else kind of is like, well, they'll be fine too. Because like the Saints even were like supposed to be like under or over the cap by millions upon millions, and it's like, well, they figured it out somehow. But
anyway, just restructured contracts, and somehow the Browns got like $36 million extra in cap space because they restructured Deshaun Watson's contract. Like, oh, this stuff is stupid.
Like, how's it even possible? Yeah, it seems dumb. But anyway, I like, you gotta like what they did. They got Aaron Jones for 2 years is good because they don't have anybody else really that they can trust. Maybe at what's his face, Cam Akers was decent, but I mean I don't know what else you got. I mean, so Jones had his best year of his career, and that's good to have him back. Again, defensively, Harrison Smith's a big one for another year because, again, if you lose him, I mean, safety would be getting a little sketchy. Theo Jackson's unproven. Metellus is kind of that like flex safety spot. So you're not sure if he's going to slide in to an actual safety or stay in his kind of like flex role. So it's just, I mean, it seems like a home run for now. Again, we'll see if any of these injuries kind of come back to haunt them. But they did what they needed to do. We'll put it that way. The quarterback thing is still a little scary. You need somebody else in that room that you can at least kind of trust. Again, whether it's Flacco or Cooper Rush, even I think, like I said, he's a good name. That he's started some games. He's been competent. Like that's a good name.
Or Aaron Rodgers.
Or Aaron Rodgers ends up being
or Sam Darnold if you can get him back for a cheap contract.
Get Sam Darnold back for another contract. Yeah. But yeah, no, they did what they needed to do. It seems like they're set up for success. We'll just see if they can all stay healthy and do what they need to do. Isaiah Rodgers, that was the Eagles guy, right?
Yeah, he's the Eagles guy. Yep. So Yeah, the biggest weaknesses from the Vikings last year were interior offensive line and interior defensive line. And getting Will Fries and Ryan Kelly are the biggest additions of the offseason for me, because you could not trot McCarthy out there next season with Ed Ingram or Dalton Reisner.
Yeah.
Or Blake Brandel.
Former guest of the pod.
I was going to say, yeah, shout out Dalton Reisner and Garrett Bradbury. Like, something had to be done. Yeah. Like, no offense to my guest of the pod, Dalton Reisner, because he did fill a good void for the Vikings and he stepped in after injury and replaced Ingram. But still, I mean, you think about he's not a 5-year, $80 million offensive lineman.
Right.
You paid Will Fries all that money for a reason. It's because he can play and he's got talent.
Yeah.
So you bring in these guys and you establish a pocket, and you think about Super Bowl windows and all that nonsense that gets discussed. Well, if you want to go the rookie quarterback route on a rookie contract route, well, this is the exact kind of diagram that you plan so that you can open up that Super Bowl window. So now we'll just see if the pieces on paper are actually the right pieces on paper.
The crazy part, though, depending on the sports book, right?
Yeah.
We're either third or fourth in the division.
Isn't that nuts? Isn't that nuts?
And now, I mean, it's the quarterback, right? I mean, that's why. But it's not like Caleb Williams was this elite. Like, the Bears have a worse roster top to bottom, and a quarterback that was okay last year, right? He's a rookie. It's fine. He's going to be better probably, right? You'd hope so for them. You know, hopefully they're fun to watch here. But he's not hardly, I mean, he's barely more proven than like a J.J. McCarthy. I know he's never played a snap, but it's not, my point is Williams didn't flash like it's just going to be some automatic thing. In year 2, he's going to be elite. That's my point. He'll be better, but it's not like he's going to just be all of a sudden all pro worthy.
And it does seem like the Lions could take a step back this year because they lost some pieces and they lost Ben Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge deal. You've seen a lot of teams that lose their coordinators don't find the same magic in the following season. It might take it takes a long time to adjust, right? Maybe by the end of the year they got it figured out, but that doesn't mean that they're going to win the division necessarily. And again, even like the Packers being ahead, it's like, again, it's all tied to the quarterback. If we had, if we signed Darnold even, we'd probably be up by the Packers in terms of odds. But yeah, it's just kind of crazy to me that we feel like this is such a successful offseason and like things are going well.
Nobody's going to stop us now.
Yeah, and like odds wise, the world is saying, yeah, people aren't betting on them to go first or second. It's third or fourth, so it's just kind of crazy.
Right. Yeah. Last topic to talk about. Gophers fire head coach Ben Johnson. After 4 seasons with the program, they send out the news release.
I was just going to look that up.
At 1:19 a.m. in the morning on X to inform the public that Ben Johnson was fired. Basically, no NCAA tournaments. Made it to a few NITs, I'm sure. But former player becomes coach, former assistant becomes coach. The idea was that he was going to bring in the Minnesota guys. Like he's like the hometown kid that's going to recruit the Minnesota guys, and all the players that go to Wisconsin are going to come to Minnesota because he's the De La Salle player that grew up in Minnesota and knows the local scenario. And he's fired after 4 seasons.
Yep.
The discussion that is taking place, and it's a fair discussion, is how much is the onus on Ben Johnson versus the responsibility of the Gophers program as a whole in having money to pay players and having a new facility, arena, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I mean, that's the question. What could Ben Johnson have done better? I don't know. I mean, last year he had a roster that overperformed and had like that Elijah Hawkins and he had an NBA player, right? Christie. I mean, so he's had some talent come through. But then again, a bunch of guys left because you can't pay him enough, or other schools are offering more, and obviously that doesn't fall on Ben Johnson. The Mark Coyle statement made me laugh. I'll say that, because you read the first part, you wish him well, blah blah. That's all fine. Obviously, again, doing it at 1 a.m. is a problem. Okay, but this part here, this is an extremely desirable job. No, it's not. It's not. Like, no. And one of the best conferences, true, cities in the nation, maybe.
Depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah. And we fully expect to compete at the highest level on off the court. Okay, fine. We provide a world-class experience for our student athletes. I mean, I think it's okay, right? I think we're doing fine. I don't know that they're doing anything above and beyond. They're not bad though, right? Part of that, so many of the schools are the same now, right? It's world-class practice facilities, food, blah blah. Like, it's all taken care of.
Yeah.
It's not unique school to school like it used to be, where it's like, wow, Kentucky has much better facilities. It's like, no, everyone's just got great stuff. We have one of the best practice facilities in the nation. Ooh. And play games in a historic venue.
There it is.
I think, if I remember right, I think Washington is the oldest, and we have the second oldest. How did Washington do this year?
That's a good question.
Yeah, they were last in the Big Ten.
Trend.
And we lost to them, by the way. I went to one Gopher game this year, and his Gophers home versus Washington, we lost. It was great. It was tough to watch. They just got us. It was terrible. All right. We offer everything needed to be successful.
Okay.
Do you?
What is, how do you define that?
I don't know.
Well, what is everything you need to be successful? Basketball shoes, socks, uniforms. Okay. That count?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we hired Ben Johnson coming out of COVID, and so you're coming out of COVID and you're navigating the NIL world that just got completely changed when he started, right? It's just something you never would have had to deal with, and all of a sudden, boom, this is what you're dealing with. So, given what he had to deal with, I mean, did he do an amazing? I don't know. Maybe. Did he do a terrible job? Doesn't seem like it, right? He did fine. And again, the key is, what is your plan to follow it up? Who are you going to get that is better, more qualified? Who's like? There's nobody interested in coaching the Minnesota Golden Gophers now. It's just not.
It's not a desirable job anymore.
No, and maybe it never. I mean, when's the best? I mean, Tubby Smith. Back then, yeah, he did solid. I mean, he was a big name that we got, but even he was kind of coming off some, honestly, the Patino thing he was probably the best name we've had.
Right. And now look what he's doing at New Mexico. He's winning.
Right. So we were quick to get rid of him because you couldn't get the Minnesota talent. Well, who cares about the Minnesota talent to some extent? I mean, in today's world, it's not about, you don't get the Minnesota guy and you keep him for 4 years anymore. That's not how the world works. It's every year that you're getting new faces, basically, and having to figure out how to work them together, unless you can raise the NIL problem, which that's the Gophers' biggest problem. It seems like,
right.
It's not having enough NIL funds, not having an organized, because even like Hawkins, like I think he was the one. He was coming back to Minnesota, and then someone else just paid him more money. And then he said, "Never mind, I'm leaving."
Right? Why wouldn't you? College sports is becoming more like professional sports.
Yeah.
Where like you go into NFL free agency, for example, and one of the best safeties on the market was that Dolphins guy, Javon Holland.
Yeah.
And the Giants paid him the most amount of money to come to their roster, and he just joined one of the worst rosters in the entire NFL because they paid the most. And it's the same thing for college sports. Oh, you're going to pay me $300,000 a year to play basketball, and the Gophers are going to give me $50,000? Well, that's an easy decision.
Especially if you're not going. Now, there's a case to be made in the pros, right? Hey, if I'm going to get $100 million or get $90 million to be on a better team, there's a lot of guys who will choose the better team. If you're Elijah Hawkins and you know for a fact you're not going to make the NBA,
cash out now.
It is this is your only window. And now, yes, maybe go play in Europe or whatever. There's other options that you might make some money, right? But this is your window. You have this 4-year window where NIL is your whole. That could set you up for the next the rest of your life potentially, right? If you manage your money right. I mean, you still have to have a job. You're not going to be able to retire, obviously, but you have a nest egg of hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially that you could use to start your new life right after college.
Right.
So yeah, it's a no-brainer to cash in because again, if you're on the Gophers, I don't even remember where Hawkins ended up going. It wasn't somewhere like elite. It's not like you're transferring somewhere to win a title. You're not going to Duke. He went somewhere. Let's see. Let's look it up quick.
I'm looking it up right now. Texas Tech.
He averaged 9 points a game for Texas Tech and 6 assists. Sorry. And he led the Big Ten in assists last year. I think he didn't he lead like the country in assists last year? I think he did. I could be wrong though. Doesn't matter. Point is, right? A guy like him, he's not going to Duke. So what does he care if it's Minnesota or Texas Tech? Either way, it's not a great. It is what it is. They're not going to win a title. He's not going to go to the NBA out of this. It's a perfect example of why you would never choose the Gophers if you have another option on the table that's more money. I mean, it's just not, this isn't a special place to people.
Right.
It was to Dawson Garcia, and Parker Fox, great. Most people don't view this as a special place to be. So you have to convince them it's special by paying them. And that's just, you might say it's stupid. You might think it's unfair. I would probably agree to a lot of extent that it's just, what are we doing? It looks like a professional landscape now, and that's not necessarily what's fun about college basketball or college football. But that's the system we're in, so it doesn't matter. That's what that's what it is. So you got to play the game that way, and we are not even close to playing the game that way.
My biggest problem with this whole Golden Gophers basketball program is when I compare it to the Wisconsin Badgers program. Now, I don't know about the facilities and whatnot or whatever, but when I think about our neighbors to the east, the Wisconsin Badgers, and I think about Madison. Why is Madison, Wisconsin, a special place to play? Why do players continually pick the Wisconsin Badgers over the Gophers program? Particularly Minnesota guys, because every year you turn on a Badgers basketball game and you see from Prior Lake, Minnesota, from Lakeville, from Wayzata, here's Wisconsin Badgers star, whatever his name is. Yep. And the question that I don't fully have an answer to, because I don't know Wisconsin Badgers program personally or have any experience with it, but is why do they continually recruit good players that are there for 3 to 4 years? Because they're not many NBA players come out of Wisconsin. You get a Frank Kaminsky. Sometimes they're on number 1 seed, but they are routinely a team that's ranked 10 to 20 every year in the NCAA, always in the NCAA March Madness tournament. Occasionally will be a number 1 seed with a Frank the Tank Kaminsky type of guy. But what is it about Wisconsin?
Yeah.
Why are they so good, and why can the Gophers program not recreate what Wisconsin has done consistently for years?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have a culture of winning, which obviously helps, right? If you win, you bring winners on, blah, blah. But, I mean, part of it is, Minneapolis, St. Paul, they boast about having such a, it's a metropolitan area and blah, blah, blah. Well, first of all, I mean, it's a huge, the U of M is it's part of this giant, city, right? It's a city. It's very much a city. Madison is very much a college town. It's big still, but Madison is very, when you're on the campus, it feels, it's the
collegiate,
campus, right?
Feels collegiate.
It does. It feels collegiate, right? It's not Minneapolis, St. Paul level. So Gophers basketball, where does it rank in terms of what people care about here? I mean, you have hockey probably is more important. Gopher football is more important generally. Vikings, Wolves, Wild, Twins. I mean, I know the seasons don't all overlap. Oh,
wow, what's going on there? You're blowing up. You're blowing up.
That was weird. I wonder what word that was. Twins?
I don't know if it's a hand gesture.
That was weird. Only the YouTube. If you put this on YouTube, they'll know. Fireworks.
They'll be on YouTube for sure. That was crazy. Fireworks.
I wonder if there's a word
I didn't
that
press
I said.
a single button back here.
I didn't either. Holly? Anyway. my point is the Gophers, I mean, no one cares about Gopher basketball here. Where Wisconsin basketball, I mean, that is what, that's what is the thing, right? That is what is cared about is Wisconsin athletics, right? It is a college town. So I think that's part of it is just the Gophers are an often forgot about in the big scheme of things. It is not a priority in terms of just the way Minnesota operates, right? You have all these different hockey programs around the state. That is a much bigger deal. Wisconsin hockey is not nearly as big of a deal. They don't have as many hockey programs, right? All that sort of thing. So it's just kind of basketball is more of a thing in Madison than, Minneapolis, St. Paul. And that's just always kind of been the way it is.
The one thing that I do not want the Gophers program to do, and I've seen this already floating around, Bobby Jackson is an assistant coach for an NBA team. Oh. Ryan Saunders is an assistant coach for the Denver Nuggets. And we've already seen those names floating around on potential rumored hires the Gophers program would hire.
Yeah, I didn't see the Jackson one, but I saw the Saunders one. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course they have ties to the program. They were a part of it. They played. Ryan Saunders, not really. But, I want you to go out there and get someone that did not play U of M basketball. That went and played somewhere else or didn't play at all and has a history of coaching other programs and taking them to another level that doesn't necessarily have Minnesota ties. Not everything has to be, well, they grew up in Minnesota, they played for Minnesota, Minnesota this, Minnesota that. Mm-hmm. I think we're done with that. Like bringing a Tubby Smith or a Richard Pitino, going back to another Ben Johnson hire where because he grew up in Minnesota or played for the Gophers, let's bring something else new in here.
Yeah. Like a Mac, like a PJ Flex style, right? Coming in with completely fresh. No, he's not he's not like he's been a, Big Ten title contender, right? But he came in and just completely different, right? Mm-hmm. Just I'm going to do it my way. I've done this at different levels. It's worked. This is what we're doing, right? So that's kind of your point. Don't bring in just another yes man. Bring in a guy who, has shown success at the lower conference level, right? And knows how to build a program. Because, let's be honest, this program needs to be built. There's nothing really there worth salvaging. Again, you have basic, facilities and all that sort of stuff. It's great, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But in terms of the actual roster, we have literally nobody for next year. Mm-hmm. Almost nobody. We have Asama, the Minnesota guy. That might be it, right?
Does Parker Fox have another year of eligibility?
He could be the coach probably, right?
Yeah. He played for the Gophers. He grew up in Minnesota. Why not Parker Fox?
Yeah. So yeah, to your point, it'd be nice to get a program developer, right? Somebody that was at a lower, maybe the St. Thomas coach is willing.
Why not?
They freaking win their conference every year, even though they can't go to the conference or the NCAA tournament.
Dumbest rule in sports, by the way.
It's so weird. It'd be one thing if you're going down, obviously, that totally makes sense, right? If St. Thomas said, hey, D1's not for us, we're going to go back down to D2. Well, yeah, you can't win right away. There has to be some rules probably or whatever, blah, 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 blah. They went from D3 up to D1, win, and then they're like, for 4 years. I think it was
Can't
4
do
years.
it. Can't do it.
Can't win.
You're playing at a severe disadvantage, playing from behind in every single recruiting class and every single thing. Hey, you know what? Come play for our program. You can win the conference tournament. And guess what? You still won't go to the March Madness title.
Yeah.
What kind of recruitment pitch is that? And yet they still do it. And then they get banned from participating. Dumbest rule I think I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, weird. But anyway, so yeah, the point, I like your point, right? Don't, because even a Saunders, right? No one would say he's a bad coach. Obviously, clearly he's a good basketball coach. He's been successful. He's worked, Wolves, Nuggets, obviously. I'm sure he's got just a depth of knowledge of basketball stuff. Mm-hmm. That's not even what coaching college basketball is hardly about. Obviously he knows more than either of us will ever know about basketball. But again, that's not even what it's about anymore. Anybody can look up and figure out schemes to run and blah. That's the easier part. The harder part is getting guys here, getting them paid, getting them to play as a team. It's more of that other stuff than just, again, X's and O's. Sure. Well, anybody that's going to be a college coach,
you put Cooper Flagg on your team, and your team's going to be good.
Right. I mean, it's more about getting the guys, getting the money, getting the program to be in a place where that can be successful. Because again, and that's my point of all that is Saunders. That's not something he's ever done. So could he be good at it? I don't know, maybe. But has he done any proof of that? No. He's been an NBA guy, right? That's just what he's good at. Bobby Jackson would be the similar thing, right? If he's never, that's what he said, right? That was the other one.
Yeah, Bobby Jackson. Yep.
Yeah, it's like he's never built a college program in this era of how you have to do it. So that would be my number one priority is how do you find somebody who has a plan of how to build a program and get guys to Minnesota when Minnesota's a place a lot of guys don't want to be. Right. You know, and just getting another Minnesota guy is not going to solve the problem unless that's also a guy who's built a program and can show how to do it.
The only people that are going to buy tickets to watch a Bobby Jackson-led basketball program was someone that watched the 1998 Final Four run.
Yep.
And it's not going to excite anybody new. It's like, Bobby Jackson, whatever.
And even 10 years ago, maybe.
Right.
You know, before the NIL deal, maybe. You know, guys like that could be successful.
Right.
You have to recruit 2 or 3 guys a year. I mean, that was a pretty, not easy job, obviously, but like they'd stay for 4 years. And if you got, you know, Dawson Garcia as a freshman, you had him for 4 years and you could trust that your program was going to be in good hands. That's just not the world it works, you know, anymore.
Completely different game now.
Yeah.
Yep. Wow, we went 46 minutes.
Nice.
Whew. Appreciate your time,
it's been
Jake.
A while, so we had a lot to talk about.
It is. We had a lot to talk about. We'll get back.
Talk about the stash here.
I know, Mr. Mario over there.
Yeah. It's already going back, though, so we'll be back to normal soon.
It looks good. I kind of like it.
Yeah?
Yeah. You should just go stash now from now on.
Go stash for a little while?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll think about it.
Let's do it. Just shave the sides and go stash. Yeah. It feels in pretty nice.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it was a week, a little over a week. This is bad for. I mean, some people grow, you know, full beard after a day, every day basically. Which I'm happy I don't have to because I only have to shave every couple. You know, it's not often that I have to shave. Which is nice.
This is like 2 weeks for me right here.
Okay, yeah. I saw you go with the clean shaven look on the videos there that you've been getting some views. I've seen some of your getting some views.
Yeah, we're moving up. We got 2,300 followers on Facebook.
Nice.
Yeah, people are watching the stuff. The content, baby. Content. We put out and pour out content's what we do.
That's you're a content machine.
Let's go. Here we go. Yeah. We'll do it again. We'll be back soon. Everyone, thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button if you're still here with us. I don't know if what I'm just saying is pointless at this point in time. Who's all with us at this point? Maybe Adam. Appreciate you watching, Adam. Thank you for making this podcast part of your day.
Adam.